I thought I'd just make a video covering the new patch that has come out for Warthunder and why it really hasn't addressed any issues. We'll start with ground RB because that's probably the one with probably the majority of issues when it comes to balance, especially at top tier. And the problem vehicle is still the same vehicle. It's still this 2A6. Apparently they nerfed its reload at some point. I don't know if that's true. I heard that. I haven't been playing much recently, but it hasn't really done much because its reload was never really the main problem. It was always this round. And it's still just as ridiculously overpowered as it always has been. It's still outperforming pretty much every other round in the game. This thing has more pen at 2 kilometers than it does at 0 meters. So, that's a recipe for disaster. If we go for everything, the US hasn't received anything to help address that balance. This is still just an inferior 2A6. Germany, obviously, have just received another Leopard. This Leopard isn't as good, but it is another Leopard. So, if you want to count it now, they have 4 possible Leopards that can compete at top tier. I mean, it's just utterly insane. The USSR actually had a lot of their tanks. I think they had 2 10.7s, whatever it was, and they both moved to 10.3. This was moved initially, then this was moved afterwards. The main reason is, of course, is because they have no reverse speed. I've discussed the weaknesses of these tanks before in a previous video, and they still haven't upgraded its ammunition. They haven't done anything with it. Great Britain have received nothing of note for top tier. None of these will be even worth talking about. I mean, this is just a 105 with, sure, it's got a nice round, but it's just a 105. And if you look at its armor, I mean, if we just look at it, you can tell it's actually just a cheap knockoff of a Leopard. It just screams, I saw an image of a Leopard, so I'm going to sketch something that looks like that and make it into a tank. There's nothing really that good about it. So none of these are really going to help. And like I said, they're 105s. The 105 is out of date at top tier meta. These have been moved to 10.7. Now, these have 4-second reloads. So I think what Gaijin did was shoehorn in a 4-second reload to now claim that they have, 10.7 worthy tanks. These are really not 10.7 tanks. They have some cool things about them, but their armor is, if I remember rightly, absolutely useless. Because, if I go to Germany, then go to 2A6, and then go it's DM53, you're literally tearing straight through the turret. I mean, I'm pretty sure even if I go to USSR and get the T90A, I mean, this will go through a turret. I mean, it's literally a point where you have no protection anywhere. So, I don't know what you're intending on doing with these tanks. I mean, other than rushing people and hoping your reload saves you, because it won't, because you'll just get sniped from about a kilometer away. The Chinese haven't really received anything of note. They're still going to be non-competitive at top tier. Pretty much the same as Italy. This thing, while having a really nice round, not the most powerful round in the game, but still a really nice round, that's all it has. Sure, it's maneuverable, but so is everything else at top tier. It has no armor, and it's really easy to one-shot. So, it doesn't really do anything. And the close, much the same. Very easy to just go through some of the flat spots on their turrets, their hulls. They're very easy to kill because, they only have 3 crew. So any pen around this sort of area and you're going to kill them. Now, this is a nation that didn't really need any help because they had very, 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 very good tanks. Although they had slightly weaker ammunition, they of course had better armor. So as you can see, Gaijin have done nothing on top tier tanks to address any of the issues. They've not upgraded any of the problem nations except for Japan, and then they've just given them a reload upgrade. They've done nothing to really help. And if we move on to aviation, this has moved up to 10.0, which is good. It should still be higher. There's no reason for this to be as low as it is. The real issue is I see with what Gaijin are doing is they're almost balancing ARRB based on things fighting capabilities when it makes no sense. This isn't a fighter. It should be balanced solely on its ground pounding capability for ground RB. Because otherwise you just get out of whack balance. This is still the same as far as I can tell. So you know it's good, but it's not a MiG-21 bis. That's an interesting description, but okay. I don't know what the difference in this is. I heard it's got new rockets or something, but it's not really going to make too much of a difference. Germany still aren't going to be really anything to talk about at top tier in jets. This is still going to be broken as hell because its BR has not been changed. I don't know if the spawn cost has gone up, but given how easy it is to just rack up loads of kills on a German team, it's irrelevant. They added in this, which looks like it has the potential to be interesting because it does get R60s, and as you got some pretty decent loadouts. But I probably won't be going for it because it just fighting wise is an inferior MiG-21 bis, and also I don't really care for using it in ground RB because if you play Russia you get crushed, so who cares. This is still probably the best jet in the game. No, it is the best jet in the game. It's better than the Phantoms, it's better than the Mirage, it's better than the Drakens. And if you go to Britain, they still don't have anything of note to compete. They have these, which have, you know, awful missiles. I mean, AIM-9Ds at 10.7 and the inferior Sparrows. I mean, to give you an idea, in real life, I'm pretty sure these got AIM-9Ls, which are all aspect AIM-9Js. But, you know, still stuck on the same crap, so they won't be competitive. But they do, you know, they do have like chaff and things like that. So we finally have countermeasures to radar missiles, radar guided missiles. That should have been added alongside the radar guided missiles when they were added, because, you know, you shouldn't add in a system without its countermeasure, unless you are an idiot, which Gaijin are a bunch of idiots. These are all basically the same as far as I can tell. China, they've gotten this thing, which I haven't really looked at that much. Let's see what it has. AIM-9Ps. From right, these are Js, but they don't have as much off-the-rail G-force, so you can't launch them at as much of an angle. It only gets 2 of them. Its performance is not that great. It's not particularly quick, it looks like, so I don't expect really this to bring much to top tier. Italy still have nothing of note. France do have a new Mirage, which actually has flares and chaff, because, you know, that's what top tier jets should have, all of them. So it might actually be somewhat useful, because this Mirage was basically just, you know, it was just free food for basically MiGs. Oh, I was wrong, they didn't add a new Draken. I heard they added a new Draken, or did they do something to this? Okay, so they didn't add a new Draken, so you still have Sweden with a 10.7 jet, with no flares, no chaff, no countermeasures, nothing. They have decent missiles, but so what? You know, it doesn't matter because they can't afford to get involved in anything, because if anyone gets behind them within 4 kilometers, they're dead. So it makes basically this is a non-competitor. So you still haven't addressed this issue, and the issues you could have addressed just simply by adding, you know, flares to a plane. You now make it so people have to grind out a whole new plane just to get flares. It's just silly. And you still haven't fixed Britain, which have, you know, complete non-competitors. But don't worry, guys, because they've added a gimmick to tanks, which is now that you can get a nuke. Because, you know, that's, you know, we want to harken back to, you know, the Call of Duty days with Modern Warfare 2 and stuff like that, where you get, you know, nukes or Moabs. You want that, you know, because that's what we asked for. Not balanced nukes. It's just absolute stupidity. The matchmaker is still not good. So you still get unbalanced teams where you'll have like a team of 2A6s and SDRVs versus like an accumulation of a couple of M1A2s and a bunch of other 10.0s and 10.3s that don't compete with those 2A6s. You still get that problem. I forgot to cover this. They added this vehicle, which, you know, looks kind of interesting. It doesn't really get anything worth talking about though. I mean, it gets some Zunis, which are, you know, okay, but they're not as good as, from what I can tell, they're not going to be as good as bullpups, so why bother? These missiles are useless, so it doesn't matter. And yeah, they haven't really done anything to help the game, which is to be expected by Gaijin. They don't really know what they're doing.